This talk, I'm going to try to bridge three themes that have come up. One is all of us are very interested in employment metrics of our students. All of our students are interested in meaningful employment. And then the professional formation theme of each student to develop towards a plan for employment, a plan of professional development towards meaningful employment. Am I not? I'm going to start this just with a comment from Bill Sullivan. So the chief formative challenge, Bill writes, is to help each student move from thinking like a student towards acceptance, internalization of responsibility to others, and for the student's own development towards excellence as a practitioner at all the competencies of the profession. So the challenge of helping is to help each student accept and internalize responsibility. I'm going to focus on that second part of Bill's comment, Bill's formative challenge, and that's the student's own development. What you're seeing here, some of you have seen this data before. It's in the South Carolina article that just came out, but we don't have good data sets on what are the competencies that the legal employers want. We have Schultz-Zedek, that's lawyers as client, saying what are the most effective, what are we looking for if we had a serious matter and we needed a lawyer. We have a fair amount of data coming out of Corporate Counsel Association, American Association of Corporate Counsel. That's big clients. We're really missing, I think, good data on individual clients. We have a few data sets from the ABA, but that's one huge gap. But anyway, I thought my hope is I have to get student buy-in to this professional formation project, so I went with data sets looking at what are the legal employers looking for. So that's what you see up there is a synthesis of 4 different data sets from the six legal aid offices, regional legal aid offices in Minnesota, the 14 largest firms in Minnesota from 65 to 750 lawyers. Very difficult to get small firm data. I know ETL, their big study is working on small firm data, but I got 23 small firms to say what are they looking for, and then 18 of the county attorneys around Minnesota, all the metro and 10 others. So what you're looking at is a synthesis. I think the key point I want to make is right here. The focus of my experiment here is going to be initiative, strong work ethic, and then commitment to professional development towards excellence. My storyline is this is what employers are looking for, so it's important for you to buy in. Again, the point there is trying to get student buy-in. So the learning outcome then would be, could I come up with something that would help students move forward? And the intervention was, I spent the last 2 summers on a book called The Roadmap for Employment. You have the steps there, the 13 steps of the roadmap. The ABA will publish it, I think we're coming out in December. And the roadmap walks the student through these steps. Essentially, the initial steps are all self-assessment, although I do have a 360 in there on a student self-assesses on the key competencies the student thinks the student is bringing now, and then I have them do a 360. I have them talk to 3 people who know the student's work well to see if they would agree with that self-assessment. I use strengths finders. I think how many of you have used strengths finders at any point? Does that ring a bell for anybody? Just one. It's certainly 2. In the business community, many business employers are using strengths finders. It's, I think it's hugely well validated and widely accepted study. It's a book. You can order it off Amazon. It's like $14, and they do it online. It gives them it's especially wonderful right after they get grades, after the first year. We've been requiring roadmap in the 2L year because Greg Sisk and I control professional responsibility, and they have to take professional responsibility in the 2L year so we can require it. And now the dean and Jerry Organ teaching foundations in the first year are going to require it. We're moving it to February of the first year. What the data sets you're going to see are second year. The roadmap then takes them through a discernment process. Well, what are the employers looking for? How do your strengths match up with what the employers are looking for? How do the sources of your positive energy flow work into the employer maps? Try to get them to think a bit entrepreneurially, although that's very difficult for law students, but we're planting seeds that they ought to pay attention to Susskind and a lot of the other futurists. Then we go and do, okay, well, what are your 3 most promising employment options at this time? A lot of students get stuck here. They think you got to keep your options open. So you have to say, well, but at this time you could have top 3, and then you could try to get experiences to eliminate or confirm options, is the idea. And that seems to be successful. That gives veteran lawyers something to work with respect to the student. And then if you have a top 3 option, what competencies are they looking for? And then on the backside, so what's your plan to use the remaining time in law school to develop those competencies? And what evidence will you have of those competencies? And then finally, how are you going to persuasively communicate this? What you're going to see here, I've been experimenting on how to do this, still very much experimenting. But so here, the reason you're going to see data sets on different classes is that I did the assessment differently. In my fall 2013 professional responsibility class, I gave them that same form you have and asked them to self-assess. So you see here, but the key on this one is I didn't do the assessment till the end of the semester, so I asked them to reflect back on where they were at the beginning and then self-assess where they were at the beginning and then where they are now, which Jerry Organ says there's a bias in there because there's a suggestion they should be forward moving. So the later sets, I've changed that and do it early. I do it in the beginning of the semester and at the end. But the key point here is right here. I mean, those just be earlier stage students. That's what the roadmap is focused on, that group, trying to get them moving. So here's that same section after roadmap, after PR. We talk a lot about in professional responsibility, you have to take responsibility for yourself before you take responsibility for others. So foundationally in the course is this idea of an internalized responsibility. But we saw, or at least they're self-assessing, substantial growth. Here's Greg Siss' class in the spring. So this would be second semester 2Ls. And here I did the assessment the first day. I've been making some mistakes on, I'll come back to, I wasn't getting as high a reporting as I am now, but I'll talk about strategies and how to get better reporting on this. But there's Greg in beginning, and there's Greg at the end of that. So now we're at the end of spring semester 2L. Here's my current class. I've got 64. I should have that up there. This time I had a strategy, so I got 64 reporting out of 64 present, which I thought was a much better result. I gave it out the last 10 minutes of class and I stayed there. And they had to pass by me to leave the door. That worked. I don't know if I think that's all fine, but okay, now I asked them, that's my fall of last year's PR class on, my initial take was, do you have a plan for employment? And that was you'll see I changed it now to, what do you have a written plan? Because I really think many people say I have a plan for employment, but we actually ask them, it's kind of baloney basically, but it can be, they're fooling themselves as to whether they actually have anything that any veteran lawyer could look at. But there's so again, my target then would be this group, very early stage. Here's that group then on having a plan for employment. at the end of the semester. Well, that's the whole roadmap concept, so you'd think they would move forward. Here's Greg's second semester 2L. Now here I asked, do you have a written plan for employment? The beginning of the fourth semester. So here's my target group. Here's the end of the second semester of the second year in Greg's class. Here's my section now this semester on a written plan for employment. Now it's getting out in the student body. The roadmap concept's getting out into the student body. I've made some strategic moves. I'll finish up here. I hire the student body president as one of my research assistants. I hire a lot of student body leaders as Holleran Center research assistants. They've been extremely effective in selling this into the student body. As Henderson has commented many times, one of our most conservative constituencies is actually the students. If you do something that looks differently, you can get a lot of pushback. So I wanted to make sure I didn't start with a cultural hole, and I think we've done well on that. So I think I have, basically, if I were to run through what I think I'm doing here, it's stage appropriate intervention, always go where the student is. Each student doing roadmap has a veteran coach from the bar, spending an hour with them to go over the roadmap. I personally do 20 a year now. But this is the main thing I think I'm doing. For those that don't have a plan, the roadmap, obviously it's messaging very powerfully. You ought to have a plan. This is what you need to do. This is what the culture expects. And this plan will send powerful messages to employers that you get professional development and that you are moving forward. So that's where we're at on roadmap. Thank you very much for your time.